Welcome to What CEOs Talk About. Do you wonder what CEOs talk about behind closed doors? How they bring their vision to reality? How do they overcome and succeed through adversity? We share that and so much more with each episode. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, everybody. My name is Martin Hunter. I am the host of What CEOs Talk About, where we translate vision into frontline operations. Today, to the bar. We're going to the bar. Sother, thank you very much for being on the show. Can you please give us name, rank, serial number?
Hey, Martin. My name is Sother Teague. I am the owner and operator of Amor y Amargo in the East Village of New York, as well as a partner in Overthrow Hospitality, and we have 12 different venues here in the East Village of New York City.
Next time I'm going out there, I'm hitting one. Well, maybe 12. Yep. Maybe all of them.
They're all within a 5-minute walk of one another, so you could theoretically hit them all.
Oh, pub crawl! I'm an avid rugby player, so we'll do a proper pub crawl. Before we start with the show, Sother's book is going to be on the links. We're going to put all the links to his bars and everything that he does on there. You want to hear and you want to see what else is out there for tools, go to whatceostalkabout.com, the website, and then you'll have tools, books, tabs, and everything. So just click on there, fill your boots with all the tools and anything else, the books and the services that previous guests have been on the show. So thank you for that. What is the title? So for those who are listening and not watching, our guest has a crazy pair of glasses. He is stylish. He is revving. I just love those red glasses, my friend. Those are super cool.
They're literally my signature. I got them.
Are they?
Yeah. I got them. So my first pair of glasses, I'm 53 years old. I got them when I was 47. That's the only pair I've ever owned. I'm colorblind. I bought them not knowing that they were bright red. And immediately upon getting them, they became my signature. Again, if you have people watching, I can show you. In my pocket at all times, I carry 2 Sharpies and a regular pen. I carry the black one to sign with, and then I draw my glasses. I draw a little doodle of my glasses. I tell people my signature is inauthentic without that little doodle of my glasses.
You can NFT it. You can NFT those glasses.
We've thought about it, yeah. We made them into a sticker on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. That is so cool. So for those who are listening, you pronounce Sother like utter with an S at the front of it. So Sother, what is the title of the show?
Sother is my name. And the title of the show is, I think it's going to be the same title as my book. I'm just here for the drinks.
I can't wait to unpack that.
Yeah, I think the title has 2 ways of being viewed. You know, is it that I'm just here for the drink as its advocate, as its promoter and champion, or is it I'm just here for the drinks to imbibe them and take them in? And I think I walk both those avenues, you know, in my life. You know, I've been behind bars in New York City now for 22 years. I was a chef before that, and I think all the skill sets translate, you know, from procurement of items to conceptualizing the thing you want to craft to the motions of building it, the mise en place, the ergonomics of movement. And then I think the difference comes, the split in the road comes when, as a chef, I would, hand the dish to service staff and they would take it out through the double doors. And I don't know what happens out there, if anything. And then, as a bartender, I get to be a part of the experience to whatever level the guest wants. You know, many guests want me to explain every item in the drink and be a part of their experience and, meet with their friends. And connect, and just as many guests want me to drop the drink and walk away. So whatever level that they want in inside of those parameters, I'm willing to accommodate.
I can't wait to unpack that because there's so many things that you get to experience the transaction with the client and the experience of the brand and the product all at the same time. And there's so much to learn from this. If you're a CEO, you're a startup, you're whatever you are, the benefit that you have is to really live through and get instantaneous feedback by not just, it's hard for some companies, they put products out there and they, like you said, out the kitchen, out the door. What's the experience? What are they doing? And asking for feedback where you have instantaneous feedback. Oh, I can't wait to unpack that. Can you tell the audience, so what's your story? Where were you born? How were you raised? Kind of tell us the story all the way up to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I'm 53, so that'll be a little bit lengthy. So I'll brief it up as best I can. I was born and raised in a little town in Florida called Panama City Beach. It's kind of infamous for spring break activities.
Yeah.
I left there 4 days after graduating high school when I was 17, and I have never been back because I hated it so much.
Oh my!
I have lived since then in 11 other states, so including Florida where I grew up. I've lived in 13 states as an adult, and I traveled around. Knives in hand. I was a chef. It was an easy way to be a journeyman. And I climbed that ladder pretty well. I had a lot of really great jobs at places that were of great note and notoriety. Most notable in my life, I was an instructor at the New England Culinary Institute up in Montpelier, Vermont. I was there for 2 years, and it's the same 2 years we were rated the #1 culinary school in the country by the International Association of Chef Professionals. I don't consider that a coincidence. That's me blowing my own horn.
You can toot all you want.
Yeah, I taught butchery and senior level classes up there. It was great fun, and I really enjoyed it. I think the thing that people know me in my chef life for the most, though, is I was the research and technical chef for the show Good Eats with Alton Brown on the Food Network.
Oh, no way!
Yeah,
I love that show.
Yeah, and then when I finally got here to New York, I jumped to the front of the house, which was supposed to be a part-time, short-term gig for a friend who asked me, hey, you make food and you make it delicious and beautiful. You think you can make drinks to get us going here? Mm-hmm. And I said yes. And then I never went back. I thought I would do this for 6 months, maybe a year. I stood behind that particular bar for 3 years, and now I've been bartending for almost 23 years, 22 years in some. And I still do it. I bartended last night at one of my bars. I love being behind the bar and having that experience. And you're right. There's so many angles to the experience of what's happening that can be used as a tool for, of course, just generally life and enjoyment, but also for business acumen. I'm somewhat required to be a man of many parts. And I think this is true of all bartenders. When you're behind the bar, you need to be, especially in New York City, I need to be a concierge to my neighborhood. Of course, all my spots are in the East Village. So I need to be able to tell people when they're at the bar, like, where should we go next? Or what should we do tomorrow night? I've got to have some ideas for them, not just my own. You can't just force your own thing on people. But beyond that, because New York is such a popular city and so well-traveled, I need to be a concierge to the entire city of New York. I need to be able to tell people, oh, you're staying in Brooklyn, then you should go to Leando. Oh, you're staying up in Harlem, you should hit up Red Rooster. But because New York is also such a heavily tourist city, I need to be kind of up on the world. When people sit at the bar and say, we're laying over here, but we're headed off to Seattle, I need to say, well, you got to go to Navy Strength when you're in Seattle. You got to say hello to Chris Helford. You got to stop by Cannon and say hello to Jamie Boudreau or what have you. We have to be very immersed in our own network, and we are. So there's that aspect. And then, as you mentioned, products, I have to be knowledgeable about every bottle that's behind me here, every bottle that's behind me at the bar. I tell my teams in the beginning, I say, if you have one thing to say, just one item to say that's factual or true about every bottle on this bar, you're ahead of most people coming in the room. If you have 2 things to say, you are expert level. If you have 3 things to say about every bottle, you're a master. So, you don't have to overfill your brain. I don't expect my team to overfill their brains, but if you can be focused enough to have 1 to 3 things to say about every bottle, that way you're never caught off guard. No one's ever going to come in and point at a bottle on your back bar and you're going to blank stare. And then what that does is builds trust between you and the guest, but also that builds trust between you and the brand. And then those brand representatives start to come in, and then those relationships get healthy. And then you can do business together,
It's so, a bartender is a salesperson, is a therapist, is a concierge.
There's that aspect too, right?
There's so many things. There's so many applicable items to the business world when you think about it. So who's an advocate of the product? I love your methodology. Hey, if you can think of one good thing about your product, what does your product do? Right. And so if you've got a series of product, okay, so why this one more than this one? It's just, and you're not forcing it in regards to selling it. What you're doing is you're educating it. And I think the bar, when somebody sits at the bar, they go, hey, what's that bottle of vodka? Where does that come from? Right.
Sure. I say all the time, I'm quoted on this many times, there's no better place to get an education than at a bar. And if that's true, frankly, I think Amor y Amargo, my most obscure bar, is university level. So like you at any bar, you can get educated on a lot of things. You can learn about the world around you. You can learn some manners. You can learn, you can learn about politics, sports. You can learn about spirits and cocktail making. You can learn etiquette. There's plenty to be learned when you're in a bar environment.
It is. I am. So shout out to Anna and Mike from Shaker and Spoon who introduced us together. We talked about it on the recording with them. Is there is so much that I appreciate. Alcohol can be viewed in so many different ill ways, and I think in North America we assume that when we talk about alcohol, we associate it with drunkenness most of the time, and I find that kind of despicable when you go in the rest of the world, where alcohol is viewed as something that you enjoy, right? You live in Europe, France. I mean, people drink at lunchtime. They don't view it as a disease or anything like that. What I love about the cocktail and the cocktail bar is there is a regal component to it. There is mannerisms. There are conversation. It slows the world down, right? Because I mean, you can have a drink. I can have a Rye and Coke, and so you have a Rye and Coke and you down it and you want to get inebriated. Okay, great. But if you're truly enjoying, let's say, a dark and stormy, who's somebody's put a lot of attention of picking the right ginger beer, the right rum, puts the right mix in it, and the attention that they put to it, you're going to consume that more as much with your eyes as with your palate, and you're going to take the time. And if you're going to take that time, then enjoying it with somebody else. There's just so much, for me, there's so much value in the human experience and enjoying a cocktail in the right environment, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're right. The rest of the world certainly views consumption of alcohol differently than I think we do here in America. You start drinking at a younger age. There's no sort of stigma around it, which then I think makes people freer to explore it. When you're told in the United States you can't have a drink until you're 21, yet you see people enjoying it all around you. Then when you get that opportunity, you're like a puppy at a bowl. You're eating so fast because you have no idea if there'll ever be food again. Your perception isn't that this isn't all of it. This is just all of it right now. And there's also what you were saying, the regal aspect. I put that in a different light. I would say it's ritual. It's ritualistic.
Oh, so true. Yes.
There's just as much enjoyment, I think, oftentimes especially in the cocktail world. And there's all kinds of levels, and I don't think any level doesn't belong in the pantheon. There are nights when you just want to have some whiskey and cokes and get it on, right?
Yeah.
But there are nights when you want to sit and have like a Manhattan stirred up for you using a particular whiskey that you love, and a vermouth that maybe you've never heard of, and some obscure bitters that the bartender has made himself, maybe, who knows. And you go through that ritual and you hear the tinking of the ice as it spins in the mixing glass, and you're salivating and you're getting ready. I think there's I constantly, even though I've now doubled my time behind the bar that I was behind the kitchen doors, I was behind there for 12 and I've been doing this for 23 now. There's something to be said between what's the difference between McDonald's and Liberta Den, right? They both serve fish, right? But the thing is, one is sort of fuel. One is just getting the job done.
Yes.
And one is cuisine, right? One is food.
Correct.
And one is cuisine. So if we can start thinking about cocktails and drinking in those lights as well. Like sometimes you just want to get full and sometimes you want to enjoy the experience and the lighting and the music and the company that you're with and the room and the, all of those parts of the thing that create the culture and create the ritual.
I feel, and get me, I'm not an expert in this, but I feel that the cocktail culture that was like in the Roaring 20s is gently starting back, where people are all the drinks that were invented back in the 20s and coming up, where I think, and this is my opinion, I feel that people are now kind of getting back into it and enjoying it more than just kind of, like you said, filling up, and enjoying the experience and the different cocktails from all the YouTubers that are out there as well.
Yeah, I think so. And we can talk about social media a lot, and it's a very important part of my world now. 10 years ago, I don't think it was. I think people are getting back in, after the pandemic, we're finally on the tail end of this comet, I hope, that people are finally getting back to the place where they want to go out and enjoy spaces outside of their own home. I think that we learned during the pandemic that we could definitely make drinks at home. And that's how a lot of social media burst with the cocktail content that's out there, people making drinks at home. And I encourage that, just as I would encourage people to cook food at home, but you also still need to go out. You need to support the restaurants and bars. And you need to see what other people are doing outside your home, and you need to be taken care of. When you're at home, you're taking care of yourself. When you're out, you're being cared for. And I think that's what we're looking for right now as a populace, as a being on the planet that's had to deal with the past 2.5 years or so of this, timidity about going out and being in crowds. We're finally getting back to a healthier place where we can go and be social again. I think that's the biggest part of alcohol consumption that maybe is not paid enough attention to. It's a very social environment. It's a rare day that I crack open a bottle of anything and drink by myself. So I think it's about true, sociability. Yeah, it's about being around people.
We tend to forget that the human creature as it is meant to be social, and we find refuge. And when you think about being around family, being around friends, being around people that you're discovering. And one of the things that people enjoy about traveling, most of the travels that I've spoken to and the way that I travel with my family, is about discovering, right? It's about discovering new things. And I believe that the one thing that I do appreciate about COVID is that people have discovering their neighborhood, right? Instead of going to Europe to have a drink, they go, okay, well, let's find this new pub or let's find this new restaurant and let's discover that component and enrich kind of the neighborhood. So I think that people have realized that you don't necessarily have to jump on the plane to travel and discover new flavors and new people, I think. And I think the cocktail world, you can have 2 or 3 different cocktails in an evening that is very discovering and enables a conversation with your neighbor or with the bartender. I think there's something I'm super curious and I love discovering that. And I think that cocktails are a great way to do that.
Oh, I would wholeheartedly agree, Martin. I think that cocktail culture and just the way that, frankly, cocktails have origin stories. The cocktail itself. The Sazerac was born in New Orleans and from Antoine Amédée Peychaud in the late 1800s, and it was made with his particular bitters and at his bar that was called a coffee house because women weren't allowed at bars, so he called it a coffee house so women could come. There's an origin story of that drink, but then there's the origin of the components of drinks. Like you mentioned, you like to drink rye and Coke. I'm not sure if you're specifically talking Canadian or American rye whiskey. Either way, there's an origin there. We talk about like drinking a sidecar made with cognac, and we talk about how cognac is a region where this in the world that it can only come from there, and how it's made. And let's talk. Maybe you're sitting next to someone and you've got a sidecar and they're drinking, Oaxacan old fashions. So they're drinking mezcal from Mexico, and there's a story there and traditions there about how we make these things. So there's tons of culture to be talked about in every single glass. You can go around the world in just a few cocktails. And as you said, like when travel has been restricted, you start to rediscover your own neighborhoods. But man, just as being able to walk down to the nearest, Italian place, I can feel like I've gone to Italy without having left my neighborhood. I can certainly go to my bar, Amor y Amargo, and drink some Italian Amari and feel like I went to Italy and didn't leave the East Village. So yeah, there's a whole lot to be discovered there. And I think that's, if you have a curious mind, you'll get there. What I've seen in the past, and I feel like it's fading quite a bit, my dad, my grandfather, and my uncles, and my aunts as well, they all, they had specific drinking habits that led them to only drink one thing. And I'm sure you have people in your life that do the same thing, right? I drink Dewar's on the rocks. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees or 10 degrees. It doesn't matter if it's my birthday or Christmas or New Year's Eve. It's Dewar's on the rocks. That's what I do.
Bud Light.
I feel like that's right? And I feel like that's certainly one way to travel down the road. But no one would ever do the same thime with food. And when I would say that to someone in my family who does that, they're like, you're right. Why do I do this with drinks? Like I've just cut off this whole level of enjoyment. I think it strangely ties back to what you and I were just talking about, which is, that stigmatization. You don't get to try a lot of alcohol before you're 21. And then when you try one, whatever it is, it does the job, quote unquote, right? It got you buzzed, it got you drunk, and then you just stick with it. You just stay the course because you feel intimidated when you walk into a bar by the bartender who's
So
talking about something you've
true.
never heard of.
Yes.
And it's strange, like even, and we can relate this back to food. How many times have you seen me as a chef and a business owner? How many times do I see people struggle with saying or pronouncing mahi mahi or whatever on the menu?
Oh
So they just
shit.
don't.
Yeah.
So they
So
skip it.
true. Yeah.
So they'll just skip it because they don't want to embarrass themselves in front of their guests or their friends or certainly the service staff. So they'll just skip it, even though they probably really wanted that dish. They ended up ordering lamb because they could say lamb, but they
Yeah.
wanted fish because they couldn't say it. So that same statement, that sort of weird fear that the American consumer has to look foolish, I think stops them
Yeah.
from being adventurous oftentimes, unless we can create an environment where we distract them a little bit with fascinators. We talked a little off air about fascinators.
Yeah.
We can distract you a little bit with fascinators, and then we can just slaughter you. We can just kill you with hospitality and kindness. And then you will try the weirdest thing or the most unique thing or the thing you've certainly never heard of. And then that is exploration, and that gets you to enjoy something new. And then you have a story to tell your friends. I went to this crazy place and I had a thing called Bekarovka from the Czech Republic, and it's delicious. I would have never tried it if these guys didn't talk me into it.
I have so some of the best bars that I've been. I've lived and worked on 6 different continents, and so the best bars that I've been at, the bartenders have always said, "Hey," so you kind of look at the bar and right away they say, "Hey, listen, what are you in the mood for? Not what you want to drink. What are you in the mood for?" Right. So they're
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to the emotions. What are you looking to
Yes.
consume? What do you enjoy? And they're doing all of these pre-qualifications and say, "Hey, listen, I've got something on the menu, but I'm going to make you this. What do you think about that?" And that building that trust, there's so many applications in the business world to saying, stop selling your shit and find out what the consumer really, really wants. What is the value flow? Make the experience of consuming your product and service in a way that's beneficial to them, not what you want to sell, where you're transforming the prospect into a client.
You're definitely talking about now we're shifting into the business aspect of talking about this conversation that you and I are having. And yeah, absolutely. No one makes any purchase of any kind, shoes, tires, the ballpoint pen they like to use, the shirt that they're wearing. No one makes any purchase of any kind without some sort of emotional connection. And so it's emotions that we're trying to tap into at all times, right? I would cite, Attaboy. It's a bar here in New York City on the Lower East Side, about an 8-minute walk from my bar. They are tiny. They seat probably 35 people in there. It's a little bit hard to get in because they're always full, but that's definitely worth getting in. So go and try. They are consistently inside the top 10 on the 50 best bars in the world list, and it's a bar that doesn't have a menu. They do exactly what you just said with every single guest about every single drink. So it's not just, hey, here's the menu, but I'm going to go off for you. It's like, hey, welcome. What are you in the mood for tonight? Are you looking for effervescent? You looking for something smooth? You looking for spirit forward, something juicy? You looking for something long and served on pebble ice? You looking for something up in a neat glass? Like, what are you looking for? And they tap into your emotions and they bring you along, and you feel very, again, it's all about care. You feel very cared for in those environments.
Yeah.
And, that's it's definitely a model it's a tough one. I don't think you could do it in a space that seats 100.
I agree.
Guys, right? But these guys have total control of their room, and they make every single person there feel quite special, and that's what it's all about. And again, I would. I know our show today is talking about bar, and I know that probably you have a lot of folks on who talk more about larger scale businesses. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter what that business is. You're selling emotional connection to your client.
100%, right? It's what I absolutely love in that methodology is, every human being has 3 major needs. When we talk about psychological safety, you say, can you see me? Can you hear me? Do I matter? And when you're in a transactional, you show up at the bar and they go, yeah, here's what's the menu. Well, I see you, but I hear you, but I don't think you really matter to me. But when you have a different approach, like these guys, Attaboy, you had mentioned, right? The bar, they go right to the end. They say, you actually matter to me in the way that I don't need to trust this or that. Cause that's employees, you, me, at every given time when we're in a relationship or an organization, those are kind of the psychological safety mechanisms or that we attach ourselves to is, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do I matter?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that, their whole approach there, I don't want to, totally make the show about them, but, maybe you should talk to them
Yeah.
next. Their whole approach there is definitely that. Their whole approach also kind of leads back to something that I say to people all the time, when they come to the bar, I say, look, I'm at work, you're not. That's one thing I say to them all the time. They'll start to, people will automatically want to, like, I don't know, clear dishes or hand you things, or I'm like, hey, just relax. I'm at work, you're not.
Yeah.
I'm here to take care of you. But we also try and make sure that they feel that the room was made for them too. The music is at the right volume for the number of people that are in the room. The lighting is commiserate to the lighting coming through the window, whether the sun's still up or the sun's gone down and the street lights are on. My bar top at Amor y Amargo is made of penny tiles, right? People come in and touch it. They're very tactile. They're very, like, drawn in by the space itself. And this is long before we've even gotten to the menu.
You beat me to it, because that's what I was going to say. You say, hey, listen, Sother's all about the experience. Like, let's talk us through it. When you're building a bar, what are you looking for? What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, first we of course conceptualize something, and then my bars, I think, are pretty unique. I'll talk about 3 of them specifically during this show, just because they're good examples. But we can talk about some that have come and gone. I lost a few bars during the pandemic too, but I think that it's my chef sensibility that makes me very focused. All my bars are hyper focused. In fact, most of them over time win awards for being focused. And when I say that, what I mean is, as a chef, there's not a chance on earth that I would open a restaurant that served spaghetti and sushi and tacos. Though I can make those things, and though they are delicious, I don't think anyone would want to eat there, because they'd be like, what is this place? It has no identity. Meanwhile, again, if we flip the coin and go to the other side, to the bar, people don't think that way, right? They should, but they don't. They think, oh, there's 4 of us. We're standing on the corner in the East Village. Let's go to a bar. And they go to the nearest bar. Meanwhile, one guy wanted a glass of wine. One guy wanted a craft beer. One guy just wanted a mojito. And the last guy was like, I've heard about this crazy Amaro bar. So whatever bar they wound up in, all 4 of them were probably disappointed. But if they've taken 2 seconds to say, these are what I want, then the Amaro guy wins, and so they're going to go to Amor y Amargo. But the other 3 aren't going to try and order a beer, a wine, and a mojito at this place, because it's just not right? You don't say, we've all decided to go to the hamburger place, but I wanted sushi, so I'm still going to try and get the guy to make me sushi, right? And the problem is, it's hospitality, so the guy might try and make it, right? And it's going to be bad for you. It's going to be bad for him. It's going to be good for nobody. So it's like a consensus that needs to happen. So all my bars are hyper focused. Amor y Amargo is all Amaro and bitters. We have the world's largest collection of Amaro and the world's largest collection of bitters. Nothing there is shaken. We don't use any juice. It's all stirred drinks. I have a bar called Café de l'Enfer, which means the cafe from hell. It's all absinthe and champagne. This very gothy environment. Like a lot of melted candle wax and skulls, but again, it's very immersive. We got a 6-foot gargoyle in there standing watch. You walk in the door through a leviathan's mouth.
Nice.
And then I've got a bar called Eterea, which means ethereal, and it's all tequila and mezcal. Literally, I don't have another spirit on the bar. People come in and they're, can I just get a vodka tonic? I'm like, no, I don't have vodka. I can make you a nice tequila tonic. And we can talk about the family that made this tequila and why it's special to me and why I have it on the bar. And we can talk about what's going on here. I encourage you to look around and see how many happy people are around you that are on board with what we do here. Again, don't try and be that person who, this is what I drink, this is all I drink. If you don't have it, I don't want to drink. Be that person who's open to the environment around them, So there's that, again, the focus aspect, but then we have to build the environment, right? We have to make a space that draws you in. Like I mentioned at Amor, we have the penny tile top bar. That's great. At Eterea, we built a pipe organ is the back bar. We built a pipe organ with the curved pipes that are reaching towards the sky. So we wanted to put all the tequila and mezcal bottles on top of it to make it appear like we're sort of a church to this thing. We want to feel like having hung flowers from the ceiling. So the whole ceiling is covered with flowers that hang down, and and you have this sort of altar to tequila and mezcal, yet we are cheeky about it. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're serving, tacos and having a great time while we do it. And then, as I mentioned, Café de l'Enfer, it's very, kind of gothy and spooky, and boy, we lean into that during October, November, and December. We do Black Christmas, and they come out and they love it, and they drink absinthe, which is, I know I pick things that are hard. Mezcal is not an easy thing to sell to people. Amaro,
Nah,
people don't even know
mezcal's
what it
not
is.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Amaro, people don't even know what it is. And then, I've got absinthe, and people are still very confused about what that is. So again, we have to be super educational. We have to be very welcoming. We have to get people to get on board every time. And I tell my teams, when I hire anybody, I say, look, this bar is going to tax you because you're going to get asked the same question over and over and over, whichever the bar, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be the same question. Each bar has its own question, but you're going to have to stay unjaded in answering, because you've heard the question now. If you work here for 9 months, you've heard the question 1,000 times, but that person asking is the first time they're asking.
Yeah.
So you got to be accommodating and friendly. You got to understand what they're asking. You got to try and, build a script in your mind about, preparing yourself to answer the same question over and over in a way that's friendly and accommodating and welcoming to people, because they don't know what they don't know. And they don't know that you just answered this question 10 times earlier tonight, so you got to stay unjaded, which I think is true of any entrepreneur in any business. You're going to, whatever your product is, people are going to ask you over and over and over about your product. So you got to be ready to answer that question and do it with a smile on your face. Not, you can't drop your shoulders and be like, oh, this question again. You got to raise them up and be like, let me tell you what bitters are, and then you got to launch into it. And what I tell my teams all the time is, don't just lean in and talk to that person. Lean back and say it to the bar, because somebody else is going to ask if you don't. Right? Let's educate the room. You can't just educate the guests. You got to educate the room, and that's great too. Then you get people to start talking to each other, and that generates what really makes a comfortable place to be.
I was gonna say, so I want to park you there, because there's so many things from me to unpack on before we jump into talking to the room that goes to social media. You go to Asia, you go to Europe. When you go to creperie, they make crepes and they make galettes. To be more specific, you have savory galettes and then you have sweet crepes. And so you go to a place like that, don't expect to eat anything else but that. You go to Japan, you go to a ramen shop, don't ask for sushi, you're going to get ramen. And it's 6, maybe 12, 15 people at the most, but that's what the shop is known for. And man, they are a kick-ass place. And I think what we've done in North America, and I don't want to take anything away from Applebee's and all those generic place, right? There's family oriented and they serve what they serve. But if you want to go for an experience where you want to taste something, you want to travel, you want to pick your curiosity, you want to have a conversation about something that is different than day to day, there's an experience to be had with that specific, area. I just absolutely love how you're specific to those places and you don't deny it. I was watching a TV show about food trucks and it was a French guy and the lady asked for, I think it was a sandwich, whatever. And he says, can I have it without onions? And with a very French accent, he says, no, madame, I do not make my sandwich without onions because the sandwich is built with onions. If you want to take them out, you can take them out. And it was it was so well placed. He didn't say it in a, most people think French are very obnoxious but they're so aligned to the craft. When I lived in France, the baker shop the bakery, which is again in France, you have a pâtisserie, a boulangerie. Boulangerie is the one that makes the bread and the pâtisserie is the sweets. And this baker, he was a baker, his father was a baker, and his grandfather was a baker. So he was committed to his craft. And his bread, he said that he had sourdough that dated back to Napoleon time that carried, anyways, through war and all that crap. But I mean, what Sother is saying is that the experience, building the experience through and throughout, sitting yourself, educating, making sure that I say all the time, operational excellence. And that's so much of a clear, I just love what you do because that operational mindset is about seeing, delivering, and improving the value flow to customers. And from the time that they choose the bar to the time that they walk in, they sit down, they enjoy one cocktail, they enjoy 2 cocktails, they have a little something to eat, and they leave. The value flow is now trusted, embedded, and now you've turned this prospect into a long-term client, not just because of the drink that he or she had, but the experience that they've done through the entire process. And I know that people are going to say, yeah, it's easy to bar. It's a physical place, bricks and mortars, but there are ways to do it that are past that can be done virtually. And let's talk about social media, because I think that that's the area that nowadays with NFTs and all that good stuff that you can get to, you can follow through, even if there's, it's a little bit different. There's a physical ambiance and emotional attachment to it, but you can still do that through distance.
Yeah, I think I want to jump into talking about social and stuff like that, but I want to back up just 2 steps. You said a word twice just now that resonates with me entirely, because it's what we literally call a sector of our business, which is craft, right? We're craft cocktail makers, right?
Yeah.
There's your dive bar, there's your neighborhood bar, your corner bar, your craft bar. And we're in the craft sector. Well, what is craft is a question that I ask potential hires all the time. And the answers that I get vary from, craft is using a centrifuge to clarify juice, or craft is reaching for a book that, was written in the 1800s and pulling out some cool recipes and following through as they were supposed to be made, or craft is, creating a new cocktail every day or something like that. I get the myriad of answers, but for me, once they've spilled out their beans, I go back and I say, well, my answer for craft is the ability to do something over and over and over again. I quote Bruce Lee often when I say, he said, "I don't fear the man who practices 10,000 punches one time each. I fear the man who practices one punch 10,000 times." Right? Mm-hmm. That's craft, being able to hone in on something and do it repeatedly with and exceptionally, as you talked about the baker or the guy with the onions in France. Like, this is how we do it. We do it really well. We're very known for this. You need to get on board with us, but you can't be, as you said, sort of arrogant or mean about that, especially in America. The consumer is just different here, but you have to be able to say, mm-hmm. I need you to try it like this. Then we can work on maybe customizing it for you. But this is the craft of the thing. This is how it's meant to be. Please enjoy it this way first, and then we'll move on. And then you also mentioned a bit of like the psychology of what goes on in a bar. And I did a video, and I can get you the link, and maybe you can share it with your team. Mm-hmm. But I did a video, I did a conference that got videoed. I think it was 7 or maybe even 8 years ago. And the title of my talk was The Psychology of the Room: How to Use Inherent Human Behavior to Manipulate People Through Their Time in Your Space. Right? And it's all about how I operate the bars. Long title, that cuts into your time, so you don't have to talk so much. I'm kidding. But and I even talk about when we open up the thing there, and again, I'll get you the link, but at the top of it, I talk about how I specifically chose to use the word manipulate because it's not a bad word. And I think we think of it as a bad word, but my goal is to show you the channel that you want to go down to have the best experience in what I've tried to offer you here. And I have to manipulate you to get you there. Right? I can't just let you go on your own. I have to manipulate your experience. Yeah. And so how do I do that subtly? How do I do that with, again, the tactile nature of the bar, the way that we approach you, how we hand you a menu, when we bring you the water? Like, there's all these steps that I've thought about in such minutia. And I talk about it in this hour-long video that got made when I was at Portland Cocktail Week, I think 7 years ago or so. So I'd love to share that with your people. Now, you want to talk about social media?
Absolutely.
Man, social media has changed the game. For the bar and restaurant industry, videos that you can watch in 15 or 30 seconds that show you processes that take sometimes days. I'm guilty of it too. I used to be a butcher. I've got a video somewhere in my social media that shows me making head cheese. This is a multi-day process, and you can watch it in 30 seconds and feel very satisfied. It's very instant gratification. And I think that that's true in cocktails and in food. And, my places are bars or restaurants or both. So social media really lets people kind of get that gratification of seeing the end result product pretty quickly, even though, it takes a long time and again, craft to make these things happen. So, in ways, I think it's great. It really is. I've got a pretty strong social media following for all the things that I do in my radio show and stuff like that. And that helps people, get the messages. They're in ways, mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit, it's a double-edged sword. Everything is, I think it's very good on a lot of levels because people get to see the end results quickly, and then they can come in and have the drink and it's instant gratification there, or the dish or what have you. But it also sets up an expectation that things are easy. the things happen fast. If I saw it happen in 30 seconds, then it happens in 30 seconds, right? And again, that process might take days to have happen. So it sets a false narrative sometimes for the consumer that they're not getting the full picture of the time and effort that goes into a lot of things. I follow, strangely enough, a few different like woodworking channels on social media, and it's fascinating for me to see them time lapse and make something that again I see in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and it took them sometimes months to make. But I get that sense of instant gratification, and they got the sense of like deeper gratification of doing the process, right? I think we often overlook and forget, how important process is, and I think social media is a little bit to blame for that. I'm not knocking social media. I love it. I'm good at it. I've got a great following that are very engaged. I'm sure we'll put it in your show notes, but I'm Creative Drunk on all channels. That's my handle. And then people really seem to like the stuff that I put out. I do a lot of food and drink stuff because, I still have that chef bone in my body that doesn't want to break. And then, we talked a little off air just for a second even, but, now we're talking about doing NFTs and how does that bring in a crowd? A very good friend of mine in the neighborhood has a coffee roasting business, and he launched an NFT that's now going to pay for his physical coffee shop. And it was so successful, he's launching another one because he wants to partner in and buy part of a coffee grower in South America. And then his NFT holders get, perks and benefits of maybe going and visiting and things like that. And I asked him outright in the beginning, like, who did you market this to? He, as a coffee roaster only, he has a subscription service. And I said, I'm sure you market it to your subscribers first. And he goes, no, I didn't market to them at all. And I was like, why not? You already have a base there. And like, this is the thing. I think we have to think more agile. I was like, that really confused me. Why didn't you reach out to your audience that you already have? And he goes, I didn't think that my coffee drinking audience knew or gave a shit about NFTs. I reached out to an NFT audience and I'm trying to teach them about coffee. I thought that was brilliant, and I think that's kind of going to be the same thing that we do. If we do an NFT, we're going to reach out to the NFT crowd and see if we can teach them about coming into the bars and drinking Amaro or Mezcal or Absinthe or things they've never heard of.
Yeah.
We're going to get them excited about the NFT aspect.
For those who are listening on the show, the previous episode with Anthony, we talked about NFTs and how the ups and downs and how Web 3 is coming along and how to do business in that metaverse. And everybody's saying, well, it's not going to happen. Well, hold on a second. When Rainbow Six first started, like these video games and stuff like that, they had the headsets and you could dial in and two guys or, a group of people could play video games together. Now they're playing Minecraft together. Look, we're having a conversation from New York to Vancouver, British Columbia. And I've done business. I hired a VP of sales and I worked with him for 18 months before I knew all about his wife, his kids, the ranch he lives on, before I actually met him face to face. And it's ridiculous, right? So we say ridiculous because that's not the world that we grew up with. And I agree with you that we need to think differently. We have to have a flexible mindset, and social media should be used for social media. And what I mean by that is being good at it, being sharing, and it's about people are perversive. They want to know. And if they can't leave their house, they want to see what Sother is doing in his bar. There's nothing wrong with that. They're saying, hey, listen, I can't be there. I think this guy's cool. He does what he does. What I don't like is the people who take advantage of social media and try to sell. So we're not about that as well. So I've been asked to really be a bigger presence of, I've been bugged so many times not to write a book. And I'm like, well, why would I want to write a book? And then I started digging into it and saying, okay, well, you can leave a legacy book or you can do a marketing book. And it's $125,000 to do this. And it's like, okay, well, hold on a second. How can I be philanthropic now? How can I add value to people without being a jerk or a douchebag about it? What do I do on a daily basis that can help others? And I think that when used like that, people appreciate social media. People can give feedback and appreciate. the thing now, like you said, like you're the person you know about the coffee shop, is you and I have to change the mindset of what we think as marketing for our businesses
Mm-hmm.
in the new world. With the drinks, that physical aspect of it is so critical to the future. As much as we talk about metaverse and, you know, real player one and all that crap, like I truly hope that the bar scene, the restaurant scene, where people interact and participate, churches, wherever you believe is your way to connect with people, that doesn't go away. If we want to use the metaverse to discover, so that we're more intentional about where we go and how, because now social media and the web has provided us with the opportunity to be more specific on what we pick. Like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have met you. And now
Right.
all I want to do is just talk to my wife and say, hey, listen, we're going to New York soon. We're going to stay there for, how many bars do you own? How many bars do you own?
There's 12 bars and restaurants altogether here in the East Village, and then actually we have one. We have one.
12 days, because I want to appreciate a bar and a restaurant at every day without killing the experience of the previous one or not getting ready to the other one. So one a day, I seem is so. Anyways, all to say that social media has also, and so for the people who are listening that are not specifically in the service industry or the foods and games and restaurant business, social media is not, even if somebody's not at one of your bar, they can still experience in some way, shape, or form what you offer. It's only because social media, you have to block it off, right? It's a 2D. It's not a 4D, right? It's only 2D. So it's only Sother making a drink or taking a picture of a taco or, you know, telling the story about this bottle of mezcal. It's not immersive, but you can still tell a story with social media. It's just chopped up.
I think what we're also doing with social media, as far as simple platforms like, you know, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube go, you know, we're still creating a space to be emotionally connected. You know, I have fans who, you know, who follow me, followers, let's call them, who follow me from all over the world, and they interact with me. They, you know, they simple as liking something or commenting, or, you know, I have a hashtag showing the work, right? I'll make something and I'll say, now you do it. And if you do it and post it, I'll repost it and I tag it showing the work, right? Here's Martin showing the work. So that gets a lot of engagement. So that gets a lot of engagement, you know, like, look, I made this drink, or I made this dish, or I made this component. You know, I show all the time, like how we make you know, our maple jalapeno syrup for our drinks or whatever. And they'll interact with that. And then someone will repost it and say, I'm showing the work, you know? So what we're still creating there again. And many of those folks, I have to assume who've never been to Amor y Amargo, who've never met me face to face, they're connected to me. You know, there's an emotional connection. Yes. And as we said at some point during this show, or I said it because I firmly believe it, you don't buy anything without an emotional connection. So even though I've sold nothing to these people to this point, I'm not frankly a rampant capitalist. I do run businesses, and so capitalism is part of that. But I don't have to get paid for every little thing I do. So knowing that these people are getting something from me for free right now is great, because I also know that when the time comes that I have something to offer them, they will be at least paying attention, if not in line to purchase. So that's highly important to me. You know, an example of that is this past Christmas, I launched a limited release of bitters. I have one right here. I made a bitters, and it's called Sother's Driftwood Bitters. I hand numbered and drew my glasses and signed every bottle. So I have bottle number 1.
Nice.
I made 500 bottles, and I thought, I'll sell them for the holidays. We'll see how it goes. We sold out in 11 days, you know, and that was, that blew me away. I thought, wow, I should have made 1,000 bottles. And so we're going to do a 1,000 bottle run at this holiday season, you know, because I just thought it was a little project I was doing, and we'd see how it went. And it went so fantastically because, again, I posted it on my social media and they were gone. So what I'm really trying to drive at here is I wasn't in the market to make a bitters and sell it for a profit. I was in the market to satisfy my own creative outlet and make something that I thought didn't exist. This bitters is a unique flavor that doesn't exist. Again, I have the world's largest collection of bitters, and no one makes this flavor, and I'm shocked that no one does. And so I made it. And I presented it to my audience. And I thought to myself, to be honest, I'm going to make 500 bottles. I'll get them all labeled. I'll get them all signed. I'll do all the thing. And at my shop, at my bar, we have a little shop where we sell, bitters as well, and my books and other books as well. We sell bitters books and barware. I thought I'll sell, on my platform, I'll sell 200 bottles, and I'll put the rest in the store, and they'll sell over the next year. To sell out in 11 days, I was dumbstruck. But what that really taught me is a couple of things. One, I do have an audience that is motivated, more so than I thought, even though they do interact with me a lot. Two, that my creativity is valuable to both myself as an outlet and to other people as a product. And three, that those audience members who are engaged with me are willing to put up or shut up when it comes to it. So pretty amazing learning experience for me on a project that I really did for. As my dad would say, I just did it for shits and giggles, right? I didn't really do it to, it blew me away is what I'm saying. So now what's happened though, is now we are creating a business out of this. So we're going to release that one again in the holidays because it's a very kind of holiday flavor, but I have another flavor coming out in 3 weeks. That's more sort of spring, summer. And I'm going to run it as a limited one. And we're going to do 2 more limited runs of 2 more flavors that we've already started working on. And then once we get them all out there and see that people like them, then we're just going to make a line of bitters and we're going to sell them. So, I feel like you got to follow your creative outlet to some degree. And if you can monetize it, then do. But I would say you're a fool. You're running a fool's errand if you run into these kind of things, thinking that you're going to make a business out of it from the start. This was just a offshoot. This was literally something for me to satisfy my creative outlet.
You are the physical representation of a commitment to craft. And that's what I tell my kids all the time. I said, whatever you do, and you're not going to find it right away, you're going to commit to loving something that you do. I mean, Mark Hennion, he's a wealth management guy, and he absolutely loves his craft, and he is amazing at it, but he's an accountant. So he is creative. He is fabulous. He is committed to his craft, and he outsells any financial management guy and organization that I know. And because he is committed to his craft, and his craft is wealth management, I manage other people's wealth, and I do it extremely well because I care about the people and I care about being creative in my own craft. And regardless if you're an accountant or a bartender and you own, what I see in your story is that you're committed to being creative. You're committed to yourself. You're committed to your craft, nothing else. Business will happen. Prosperity follows. There's bumps, yes, but hard work should always be celebrated. Hard work plus sustainability equals prosperity in my count. And people love that authenticity that you're providing. And it's like, you're not bullshitting anybody. You are who you are, like him or not. And I love what I do. And I think that that's the representation or the output of it, is that there's too many companies out there to say, we need to be innovative. What's the new thing that we're coming out with? How about you just commit to your craft, let your creative juices flow, and then try something, beta test. I mean, I'm sure that creating 500 bottles was not an over amazing amount of money to invest in. And you just say, oh, wow, shit, that really worked. And so now we've got a winning strategy. How about we apply some new product development to it instead of going, hey, listen, we need to grow revenue by this much and we need to come up with 5 different things. And then it becomes transactional and not transformational. Sorry, I was kind of on that, commitment to craft boat here.
No, I love it. I love that style of thinking, transformational instead of transactional. That's a phrase I'm probably going to incorporate into my daily vernacular. because I don't think for 1 minute I've started any business that I've had that currently exists or has come and gone for whatever reason. You know, many businesses come and go.
Mhm.
I don't think that for 1 minute that I did any of them with the notion that they were going to make me, they're going to make me money, of course, but I don't think I went into any of them
Yeah.
thinking this is going to be the thing that I can retire or I can quit or I don't think I'll ever quit. You
Mhm.
know, I'm in it for, well, I think we can reel this clock backwards in this conversation that we've had right here. You know, I told you I was a chef for 12 years. And then
Mhm.
I moved to the front of the house and I said to myself, yeah, I'll do this as a favor to a friend. I'll do it for 6 months is what I told him.
Yeah.
And again, I stood behind that bar for 3 years, and it took me at least a year, that first year, to realize why I wasn't going back to the kitchen, where I had at that point, 12 years, that's a pretty long time, a good solid career going
Yeah.
in that world. I was a known player in that world. Why wasn't I going back? And it was, again, the thing that I talk about all the time, which is, emotion. So the same emotional
Mhm.
response that you have when you were going to buy, again, whatever watch or hat or whatever it is you're going to buy, you have that to your life in general. And I had much more of an
Mhm.
emotionally fulfilled time being behind the bar than I did being behind the stove.
You know what? I'm in the place where I've succeeded at solving other people's problems for businesses, and I'm very satisfied with my journey. I'm kind of at a crossroad right now where I don't know what my next craft is, and
Mm-hmm.
find out what I really, really, true love working on. How do I apply what I know best and what I do best? And yeah, that's, I don't want to call it a midlife crisis. And I've been very successful at doing, like I said, what I've been doing, and going to keep on doing it. But I'm a little bit struggling because I want to see that same thing. I don't feel something tangible like making a drink or building a restaurant or having products out there with the NFTs. You know, it's a hard place to be. And sometimes you have to pause. Sometimes you have to go out to the pasture and just kind of take the time to think, to say, kind of refocus. Kind of like what you did, right? You wanted to be creative. I don't know how you did those bitters, but I'm sure that you kind of emptied your mind and say, well, what do I want to create? Oh, hold on.
You
I've
know,
got the
Martin.
world's largest collection of bitters.
Yeah. And
Go
there's
ahead.
one missing, at least one, right? I identified them. That's what that. If you want to get to business talk, that's what business is, right? Find something that's missing and create it so that people can have it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it was a missing flavor. It's cinnamon and grapefruit, right? Which have lots of bitters that have cinnamon in them or are cinnamon flavored. There's lots of bitters that have grapefruit in them or are grapefruit flavored. There's not one that's both, and it's a shocking. I don't know why it took me so
Yeah.
long to notice that it was missing, but that's a very common flavor in the cocktail canon in all of the tiki world. It's literally got a name. It's called Don's Mix. It's cinnamon syrup and grapefruit juice. So cinnamon and grapefruit in the tiki world. Why can't I have that in the
Wow.
bitter world? So I saw that it was missing and I made it. Um, but I think you just said something a second ago. I'm going to forget exactly what you said, but you said something basically about like kind of dumping stuff out of your head, downloading it. Right. That's what my book was about. Like
Yeah.
I thought about writing that book for almost a decade. And there's actually documented proof of that when I was interviewed in an online magazine that doesn't even exist anymore. It was called Metro Mix, and they asked me a lot of things about what I was doing currently. And then the last question was, what's next? And I said, I think I'm going to write a book called I'm Just Here for a Drink. It turned into I'm Just Here for the Drinks. But that was, and then that was 10
Yeah.
years, 9 years and change before the day that I signed the contract to write the book. And then when I wrote it, by the way, it just ejected, gave me a lot more free headspace to move on and do stuff. So,
Oh.
really encourage you. You mentioned you're being, asked to write a book. I would encourage you to
Yeah.
do that. It's a great mental download. It's a real relief that you're not carrying around all that much information all the time with you anymore. You can kind of let it go. I have to reference my own book sometimes because I don't remember what I said. People quote the book all the time, and I'm like, oh, sure, that sounds right to me. And that's great. That's you've freed the space up to have other things go on, and also, again. The book will get you some monetary gain, of course, but it gets you, back to sort of social media. It gets you kind of clout. If you've got a book on a shelf somewhere, if people are carrying around your book, they're reading
Yeah.
your book, they're learning from you, then this gets you a little bit of clout. This clout gets you asked to be a speaker at different events. I speak at cocktail conferences all over the
Yeah.
world. I get, invited to do great things. I get invited to be, on tasting panels to taste products that are being produced or conceptualized. I sit on panels where I taste things for, San Francisco World Spirits Competition, et cetera. I've taught some classes for, Bar Smarts, which is, the biggest sort of educational component of the cocktail world, all because they can say noted author Sother Teague. It's not just about everything I've done. It's like you add this little accolade, right? It's like the only award you can give yourself. I've gotten awards for other things, but like, because now I'm noted author, that's an award I gave myself, I guess. So I would highly encourage you to do it. And also I would encourage you to do it in a way that will, illuminate and delight your audience, or an audience that you don't even know that you might have, or an audience that you definitely don't have that maybe you could get. And you have a wealth of knowledge in your arena, and you should, knowledge should be shared all the time, right?
Agreed. Speaking of which, the question that I ask all the guests is, what's the one piece of reference, either movie, book, document, that you have kept by your side your entire career that you refer back to?
Well, there's definitely one for my culinary career. It's a book. It's called On Food and Cooking by Harold McGee, who's a food scientist, which there's plenty of that book that is just patently boring to the average reader. But it set my career in motion in the back of the house, in the kitchen aspect. So there's that I have that I constantly reach back to. As far as the front of the house goes, I came into bartending when, there weren't even very many blogs, so we had to go deep and find books at rare bookstores. 22 years ago, there wasn't like a whole lot of internet information that was readily available like it is today. So sad is the wrong word. I think that my most constant companion for reference in the front of the house world is the internet. I reach for my device and I can pull up nearly anything I want. Now you have to vet stuff. You have to make sure that you're getting good information. You have to look at multiple articles or things like that, so you make sure that you're not just pulling from nowhere. But I can't think of one straight away for the front of the house, but the back of the house,
that's good. That's
I
good.
I can see my copy of On Food and Cooking right up there. There's
it's all good.
Dave Wondrich. I think Dave Wondrich's book had a lot of influence on me in the front of the house. He wrote the book Imbibe, which is kind of a historical look at drinks and drinking. He took the first cocktail book by a guy named Jerry Thomas, and he kind of went through historically bit by bit of the entire book and recalibrated the recipes to make sense to today's drinker. But that book again is a little bit stuffy and stiff to read. But it's a great book as well. And then I guess the Meehan Manual by Jim Meehan. Actually, I can see that one right behind me. This one here. That's a great book as well. Especially if you're opening a bar, it's really a tough read, I think, for someone who's just curious. But if you're about to open a bar, I mean, there's floor plans in there, there's specs in there, there's companies that you might want to call on to help you get your custom made stainless steel pieces. Like, it's a great reference. I am a busy person. I stay very busy. So I'm one of those types who I really enjoy the work that I do. So I say yes kind of all the time. Anna said, "Hey, you want to do this podcast with this guy?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's go." I'm always saying yes. And I work with them a lot too. I work with Shaker and Spoon a lot. And it's hard work for them. It's a very different thing to say, I'm going to make a drink that's going to go on a menu at a bar, and X number of people will come through each night, and X number of people will order that drink. So maybe over the course of a 3-month menu at a bar that holds 40 people, maybe that drink's going to get drank, let's call it 2,000 times. Whereas when I make a drink for Shaker and Spoon and it goes in their box to their 25,000 subscribers, and they're all going to drink it. You come to the menu and you might pick it this time and you might not. You may not come back ever. Everybody's getting that box. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be road ready. There's right? Mistakes. There's no mistakes. And I've been fortunate that I'm so attention oriented and detail oriented that I've really dove into every project that they've given me, and they've all been greatly successful. And again, speaking of social media, they have a massive presence on Facebook, and those people are super engaged, and they reach out to me all the time. And I know I'm only one guy, but I respond to every DM, every tag, on all social media platforms that I'm on. If you tag me or whatever, I respond. It's me. I don't have a team. I don't have anything. It's just me. I think that makes it personal, and that's what, again, back to emotions and connection.
I agree.
I think that's a really huge part of business to me in general, is making sure that there's that emotional connection.
Sother, thank you so very much for this. Look at us. It's an hour in the making already. I got 1,000 more questions. I truly appreciate you making the time for the show. It's just delightful today.
Martin, so happy to be here. And, if you didn't, I love, my radio show, the Speakeasy, my podcast. I love when we get to the end and we have much more to say. All that means is we have to have you on again. So I'd happily come back and be on again if you like. But man, this was great. And I really appreciate you reaching out to me.
Fabulous. Thank you. With that being said, everybody, my name is Martin Hunter. I am the host of What CEOs Talk About, where we translated today a whole vision of enjoying drinks. You showing up for the drinks in a different way. So what are you consuming at the end? What do you get out of this conversation with Sother and I? I think there's so much to take away that is not more than a drink, but a lot more than a drink. So thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to What CEOs Talk About. Make sure to click subscribe to get notified about future episodes, or check us out at www.whatceostalkabout.com.